Rampage has been calling you the White Don King all week. What does that mean? Why do you call him the White Don King? Are we rolling?
Nah, he better than Don King.
Are we rolling?
He only saw me from the waist down.
Oh my God, that's how we're starting. Rampage, that's how we're starting.
Come on, man, don't do that.
So you call him the White Don King because like that? That's what you said this morning? It's like that? That's what you were saying? That's what you were.
You go try and clown me in front of one of my favorite people on the planet. This is a circus. This is my favorite promoter.
I'm going to take that as a compliment. Don King was the greatest boxing promoter of all time. Like him or don't like him, the fact is what he did sold. And people can like people or not like people as a promoter. But the most important thing for a promoter is to continually create opportunity. And if he doesn't have success and he's got to steal money the whole time from people to try and make his living, he's not going to be able to help anybody else out get their start. So, you know, Don King might have done his thing, but he made a lot of people a lot of money. So, you know, I'm not saying he's a great guy, but if somebody calls me the White Don King, that's a hell of a compliment in my world.
He was a great promoter, though.
Yes, it was the best.
All right. I'm going to start this one off. Hey, it's another JAXXON podcast with one of the best co-hosts, Bear DeGidio. And we got one of my favorite guests here, the guy who gave me my big break, the man of what's the best way to say it? KOTC or King of the Cage?
I like King of the Cage.
I
actually like the way you say King
say it
of the
again,
Cage.
King of the Cage.
Yeah.
King of the Cage.
One more time, deeper.
That's what she said.
Oh, God, here we go.
Terry Trebilcock.
Terry, I just got to tell you something. This man's been hyping you up all week. He said you are the man. You put on one of the greatest events in the history of MMA, and he said because of you, that's why he's a superstar. That's why he gets all the chicks. That's why he has all the money, and it all started with you.
Well, it was kind of like that, but Quentin's always been a very kind man. Like you can see the image of the Rampage and the mean guy and stuff like that, but I know him as Quentin. For the nice guy that he is, for the very personable, the family guy. I've seen the sides of him that most people don't get to see. I think he's one of the greatest people I've ever met, personally.
You see, he called me by my first name because a lot of people, they don't get time to get to know Quentin. Everybody just know Rampage. A lot of people I meet, they don't really want to get to know me. They just see Rampage and I hang out with them and it's them talking. They cut me off and they don't take, but Terry took his time to get to know me and we become great friends over the years.
Rampage is a superstar. Quentin is a super person. That's the difference between the two. He really is.
Eminem. You went from the White Don King to Eminem. That's a bar.
When you deal with thousands of people in your life, in you find about 5 or 6 really good people, you feel like your world has become a better and bigger place, and Quentin's one of those 5 or 6 guys. You know what I mean?
I can attest to that.
He really is.
This guy is
and everybody that knows him knows it.
Yeah, all joking aside, Quentin, regardless of the nicknames like, Mini or Soft Serve, Quentin is one of the best guys I've ever met. He's always been there for me, always been there for the people around him, and he always gives without expecting, and that's why he's one of a kind.
Well, the only reason why y'all can say that because y'all been cool to me. I don't treat everybody like that. Some people I keep them,
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to. You only have so much time. You got to put it to the people that, that have been good to you, or the people that, see you as are appreciative. How many people do you do stuff for that just don't appreciate anything? And you look and go, man, I could have wasted that on somebody else that was much more appreciative than you. Yeah. But in the end, when you want to talk about the way Quentin got started, he's given me credit, but he actually really, really had to earn it. I mean, his first fight coming in, he was training at Fabiano Eat School in Huntington Beach. You go way back. They had Tiki, they had Fabiano, they had Tito, everybody there. And Fabiano comes to me and goes, I need to get a fight for this guy. He's, he just came in from Memphis and he's a great character. I'm like, well, how much does he weigh? He says 205 pounds. I said, well, I'm thinking, I got a guy at 205 pounds that was an Olympic alternate as a wrestler, world-class kickboxer. Yeah, I got to fight for him. So I threw him in against one of the toughest guys that I could possibly throw him in. And the plan was, I was developing the career of the other guy. Okay, that was the plan. I'm going to tell him right there. The plan was. Now, what he did was unbelievable. In the first round, he got lit up a little bit, and he got tired. He could barely stand in between the first and the second round because he took the fight on 3 days' notice. The other guy had a full camp. And I thought, wow, this is perfect for promoting this guy. But little did I know by the end of it, the whole thing would change. So as we're going through this fight, we come down to about the end of the second round, and all of a sudden, Quentin lands a huge punch and has got Marvin Eastman in all kinds of trouble. And if there was any more time left in the fight, he'd have knocked him out. End of the fight, we've never interviewed the loser of the fight. Steven Quadros came up and interviewed Quentin, and Quentin said, dude was a better man than me tonight. I wanted experience, and that's what I got tonight. I got experience. He said he kicked me in the head, and I actually liked it. I said, there's a superstar in the making. That's word for word what you said. I can remember it like it was yesterday.
How do you remember that?
Because it was important to me. You were that special right off the get-go. Wow. So when I saw that, I was like, you know what? He says he's a little short on MMA clothes. Let's go to the rage table. I got him anything this guy wants, get him all the rage stuff. And from there, Quentin became the guy that I was pushing, no longer Marvin Eastman. I gave Marvin Eastman one more fight because I had one more fight left on the contract, and our move was to move towards Quentin Jackson.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Because he was on a 3-day notice. You can teach fighting skills, you can teach conditioning, but you can't teach the heart that this guy had. And I've never seen anybody like it ever in the sport. So that was a turning day. It was King of the Cage 4. It was called King of the Cage Gladiators. It was Dwayne Ludwig fought on that card as well. Mm-hmm. And I can even remember the box. The box was red for the VHS. We were still doing VHS tapes back then.
Man, you know what you did when you gave me those clothes when I came back? You remember what you did?
Yes.
You know the guy who got me started in MMA?
Yes.
He started like treating me different after that. He was right there. He was like, what about me? I won my fight.
That's right.
You remember that?
That's right.
I was like, and I looked at him, and bro, I felt bad. And this is the true story why people always say, oh, Rampage, you're so humble, you so this, you don't care about the fame, because to be 100% honest, I always felt guilty because my friend that started me to fight, we started, well, he started before me, but he brought me in. Our goal was for us both to make it, and he didn't make it.
You were so loyal to him. It was unbelievable. I could see that endless loyalty, even with him being a little bit jealous. Even when I brought him up to fight Akira Shoji up in Reno, it was just a certain amount of jealousy. And I don't know if it was like a bad kind of jealousy, but it was like, I brought this guy in, he's going to be a superstar, you know? Not every calling that you get is the right one. Sometimes you got to try several of them. Yours was MMA, but what a character. I mean, we could go back to the Chris Brennan thing. I'd love to talk about that if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, Chris Brennan got mad at me because I said some shit about that stuff.
Well, he'll get over it. You know, I mean, what's he going to do?
I'm not worried about him.
Chris Brennan is a tough dude. I give him credit for it. He's a good fighter. You know, he's a little bit of a handful. But that time when I sent, we were trying to keep you safe because you had that situation going on with the college thing that you beat up the kid because he broke into your room, and you had a public defender representing you, and his family had some money, and you got. It
was self-defense.
Yeah, right. Self-defense. Anywhere in the world, it would have been self-defense unless you're going against a real attorney against a public defender, which you had. So in the end, we had to keep you hidden to get you to Japan. And he called. Have you talked about this? Oh, we got to talk about this. We got to talk about this. So Quentin is getting ready to go fight Sakuraba, the Japanese hero in Japan. And this was just after a fight up in Calusa, and he's going to be the main event. His first fight in Japan, he's going to fight Sakuraba, the national hero. So I want to keep him out of the limelight, so I have him stay at Chris Brennan's school. Well, at Chris Brennan's school, he goes, hey, man, I have a weird feeling. I feel like they're trying to hurt me down here. And I'm thinking, why would they be doing that? And I started thinking, well, maybe Chris at 175 pounds thinks he can step up and fight Sakuraba if Quentin's hurt. So I said, hey, stay out of that. Keep going to Gold's Gym or whatever you were going up the street. Keep your weightlifting. Be ready for your fight. So they got over to get ready to get on the plane, and Chris Brennan had like 12 guys from his team coming with him. Chris Brennan's never had 12 guys fly anywhere with him to any fight, even when he fought. Why would he have 12 guys flying when Quentin was fighting? So as he's walking onto the plane, guys jump out with guns and say, on the ground. And they've got Quentin, Boss Rutan, and Mark Kerr. Somebody called anonymously and said that a convicted felon was fleeing the country, and they had him on the floor.
True story.
So they arrested him. Now, I've got my name on it as well. King of the Cage sending their guy over to Japan. So what am I going to do? So I jumped in and I said, okay, I called one of my sponsors, Z's Bail Bonds. The early days when we had small sponsors,
He bailed me out.
Yeah. I put my house up to bail him out, to send him to Japan. And before he left, he grabbed one of the ladies that was the police lady, because they loved him at the police department. They knew he wasn't bad. Picked him up over the head, took a picture. They put it on the front paper of the Japanese newspaper. Serial killer coming to fight our national hero. He immediately became a superstar. They fucked him good, and they never talked about that, but they fucked him good over in Japan.
This
was big time with the weight
because
he has never fought at less than 205 pounds. The contract was for 205 pounds. They lied. They said he had to make 185 pounds. He's nowhere near 185 pounds. So they weren't going to let him win the fight. But he got down as low as he could. He sat in the sauna. He did what he had to do. They carried him to the weigh-ins, got him weighed in, and he threw Rob around like a rag doll for about 7 or 8 minutes before the cut.
No,
yeah,
I just had
dehydration.
Before the dehydration kicked in and just took it out of him. Yeah. But he would have destroyed Sakharov at that time. But the important, and he came back, he was a little dejected. He also wouldn't allow him to choke him unconscious because they had in the contract that they would pay him more if he took the choke all the way to sleep if he lost. And if he didn't tap out and he lost, he was to get more money. So it was really a nasty kind of deal that Pride
Wait, you got to slow down on that. You got to repeat that for all the fans watching this because this is you're giving us groundbreaking information, and I hope that you have security for the next couple of weeks.
No, they're not going to fuck with it.
All right. Let's make sure. Let's make sure. If you need it, you let me know. I got a guy named George. He owns a company. We'll make sure you're good. But explain that again to me.
They had
Who's they?
In the contract, the Pride group at the time.
Okay, so Pride did a contract between Rampage Jackson and Sakharov.
Right. I don't even know if the head of Pride knew, but Hideki and Yukino had a deal written down on paper, said that he got paid this much if he won.
You're talking about Rampage or Sakharov?
Rampage. This much if he lost, this much if he won, but there was a money in between if he won and he didn't tap out.
Or if I got knocked out.
Right. If he got knocked out or he got choked unconscious. And as poor as he was at that time, he needed that money. He didn't give them that. He eventually tapped to the choke, and they were pissed.
So if you were to just passed out instead of tapping, you would have got like a double bonus or something?
I would have got a little bit more money.
I want to say he was getting about $12,500. He probably would have got another $2,500 if he didn't tap.
I remember the exact numbers.
Yeah.
It wasn't worth it.
No way. But the fact was,
I was broke at that time.
Yeah.
I was.
Rampage Jackson, can I just tell you something right now without cutting you off? That's why you're the man.
Yes.
Because you're willing to go down for the whole sport. You ain't biting into the nonsense.
No.
You don't deal with the brass.
No, I'm not throwing no fights.
This is why you are a legend. Keep going.
Yeah. So he came back, and my attorney contacted his probation officer up in Northern California. Okay.
Why were you on probation?
Okay. We'll go back. When he went to college, he was the first kid in his family to go to college. He went to college, and he went to Susanville, which is a pretty predominantly white area. And I don't buy into a lot of the black-white stuff, but at this time, Quentin was the only probably black guy around there. And Susanville's pretty white. But he went in, he made the wrestling team, he beat out one of the kids that was a stud up there, and the kid lost his wrestling scholarship. So in the middle of the night, he broke into Quentin's room with a phone and started beating Quentin with the phone.
He's almost close. He's almost close with that.
Well, Quentin got a hold of him and beat the piss out of him and put him in the hospital.
What's almost close? So let's be accurate.
Well, it happened 20 years ago, so he can't remember all details. I got locked out of my room, and he was on the phone, and he was yelling at me. My dumb ass walked around there, and he hit me in the mouth with the phone
several times before he got a hold of him.
That's why I got this scar on my lip.
Like an iPhone?
No, it wasn't no iPhones back. There was a payphone. The big black receiver on the payphone.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy
those were heavy.
Yeah, you seen the Joe Pesci on the Goodfellas? Yeah. Cracking the big hillbilly.
Yeah, he hit me in the mouth with the phone and started hitting me in the head with it.
What'd you do to him?
Well, he put him in the hospital. And what happened was they went to court, and they said it was self-defense up until a point, but he went too far.
I went too far.
So they said, if you pay this $12,000 $500 medical bill, we'll let you, we'll waive the felony charge against you. And he's like, well, why would I have to pay $1,200? So that's the way it worked out. He had a $12,500, and until he paid that off, he was going to be on probation.
Wow.
So he ended up having to leave school as a wrestler, moved out, came down, and was hanging out in Southern California looking to fight. I found him with this story. Then, after coming back from Pride with the money, I put him in a Escort GT with another 300-pound fighter, Mike Mark the Rhino. Yeah. They drove all the way up to Susanville. They paid the $12,500 in restitution. My attorney called his probation. My attorney's wife was at the time a probation officer in Southern California. She got the case transferred to her. She saw him one time, called it a day. He was free and clear.
Yeah, man. This is why I love this guy. I'm trying to tell you.
This is incredible.
Yeah. Not only did he do all this, little time go by.
Yeah.
A little time go by, and I'm fighting again and fighting. I was about to fight this guy that fought in Pride. What's his name? Bobby Southworth.
Bobby Southworth. Yeah.
Bobby Southworth.
No. This is before. This is when Pride was looking at him.
Okay.
So when Pride was looking at him, just before all this happened, we took him up to Calusa to fight on a Gladiator Challenge, which was like my qualifier show back in the day. Eventually, I got out of it, and it ran a different direction.
This is right before.
Thank God I got out of it. But so he was scheduled to fight a guy named Bobby Southworth, and at the last minute, Southworth felt like he wanted more money. I think he personally got scared. And Southworth wanted more money and backed out. So we had to find somebody. We had all the Japanese there from Japan to watch him fight, to do the coming down the ramp and everything, and all camouflaged out back then.
You were already howling back then.
Yes,
Yeah, I came to the sport with that.
Yes. And well, if we got no fight for him all of a sudden. So we're looking around, and one of the camps had a heavyweight that was there, was in the back smoking a cigarette, and we're like, hey, bud, we need you to step up. You got to fight Rampage Jackson. Or at that time, it was Quentin. And he stepped up, and we got the fight done, and Pride loved it so much. That was it. You know, we signed a 3-fight deal. Who was your first guy? Because you kind of asked me to represent you, but that's not really my thing. So I had a guy that was
Tommy Rojas.
Tommy Rojas. And Tommy Rojas was good for getting him started, was a solid guy, but then he got big enough that he needed the biggest guys at that time. And everything worked out. His career took off. He did his thing, and he's been that man all along. You know, he really has. This is one good man.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah, he got me my big break and Pride, man. He did that for me. He didn't have the shit he did for me. He didn't have to do it.
So let me ask you a question.
But he earned it. I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't like I gave it to somebody just to give it to somebody. This is a guy that went out, needed it, earned it, and didn't expect anything. Yeah. I mean, when you have somebody like that, it's just there's so few kids today that come up that aren't, you owe me this or you owe me that. This guy was a guy that was hungry for an opportunity, and he was a star in the making from the get-go.
And let
I wish I had the money to keep him. Yeah, I just didn't have the money to keep him. I had to let him go. You know,
I came back.
He did, and he fought for me for $2,500 when he was making $50,000 a fight, and fought a guy that was pretty damn tough. Sean Gray could fight.
That was one of my toughest motherfucking fights.
His toughest fights were in King of the Cage between Sean Gray and Rob Smith from Wisconsin. Yeah. Hey, you talk about a guy who slammed every guy in the sport. Rob Smith slammed him. He slammed Rob Smith 2-3 times, but I think Rob Smith slammed him once or twice too. It was an amazing fight in Michigan at the Soaring Eagle Casino.
Why would you go back and fight him if you were already getting paid $50K to fight in Pride?
Because that's how I am. This is a man. He gave me my big break.
Do you see this? I hope the audience is listening to this and understanding that this is why when they talk about where the icons of modern day MMA, they don't have this attitude or this love for the game and for people. They care about the dollars, they care about business, but sometimes in life you got to have a good balance. Yep. So you're in Pride, you're making $50K a fight. You go, you know what? I got to take care of the guy who started me. You call me and you say, I want to come back to King of the Cage and I'll fight for $2,500.
I had my first pay-per-view show in Reno. Yngwie Malmsteen played the guitar for the national anthem up front. One of the top guitar players in the world. And he put on an unbelievable fight. Severin was on that card, and Akira Shoji from Japan. There's a lot of big names on that card. Nobody bigger than him.
Yeah, honestly, that guy was tough. I didn't think Terry would give me nobody that tough. That dude was strong as fuck.
Well, let me tell you. He didn't show that being tough in all of his King of the Cage fights, but when you're fighting somebody who now is considered the elite level of the sport, every fight he has is somebody's Super Bowl. You know what I mean? It's their Super Bowl to fight, so they're training. You know what I mean? He was not that tough of a guy, but he was that night. Let me tell you.
I bumped into him at Anthony Pettis' show like a couple months ago.
Very cool. Yeah, he's from Alabama. You know,
he's from Alabama.
Yeah,
I think we was in.
Super good dude.
Super good dude.
Super good dude.
So Rampage, you talked about to one of our past guests that you would do these tune-up fights. You were telling them. Do you remember who you were talking to about this?
My memory's bad. I was telling somebody about the warm-up fights.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
I actually
we do so many podcasts.
Yeah, we do so many. Hey, Loco, do you remember who he was talking to about warm-up fights? All right. So you were talking about warm-up fights. This guy might know. Vinny, who was Rampage talking to about warm-up fights? Who was he talking to about warm-up fights recently?
Paul
Paulo Costa.
Paulo
Paulo
Costa.
Costa.
Okay,
there we
yeah.
go. That's why it's important I say the name. So Paulo Costa said, man, what an incredible idea to do these warm-up fights in a gym before you go fight in a UFC or a Pride or in King of the Cage. Were you using King of the Cage as a way to warm up for Pride fights? Is this the secret?
No.
I think his fights were tougher in King of the Cage than they were in Pride. Yeah. Like the Pride had the image of having the toughest guys in the world, and they had all of them.
That's
what
what
the guys he fought in King of the Cage, he fought some super tough guys.
Bro, I can't understand the record. You were okay with maybe potentially losing or something?
Yeah, I didn't care about losing stuff back then. I never cared about losing.
If he'd have lost, I'd have found him the money. I'm sitting there and I'm sitting there through the end of the second round thinking, fuck, how am I going to get him to make 150 grand a year if he loses this fight and Pride doesn't like it? Because I can't take that away from him, regardless of the nice thing he did. Bro. I can't let that go away. So there would have been, I would have found a way.
But in my mind, I know Pride, they don't care if you win or lose.
It's about performance.
As long as you put on an exciting fight.
And it's really what it should be.
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's all performance. When UFC was first taken over by Lorenzo and Frank Fertitta, they were putting the fights people wanted to see on the underground together, and they were getting some shitty fights.
Really?
Because guys were, when they paid, when they were cutting guys for losing all the time in the early days, that was the problem. You should cut a guy for winning and winning ugly. I cut Tony Johnson in the middle of his fight in Las Vegas because he was so freaking boring. And I told him, listen, I don't want to see you lay on somebody and paw away at him anymore. I can't sell it. It doesn't help me. I won't do it. Next fight, exact same thing. Before the third round, I said, do what you want to do, but this is his last fight here. I cut him in the corner. I was furious.
That's the type of promoter I would be.
Yeah.
I don't like that
shit.
I
mean, listen, all I expect somebody to do is to honor their word, and I'm going to honor mine 100% of the time. And life is so easy when you do that.
I'm so happy that we have you here on the show, because honestly, dude, these stories and hearing it from Rampage sometimes, but then hearing it from you and the excitement, you could see the passion you guys had. There's no wonder anymore why you have been so successful in being a promoter and you as a fighter. One thing I want to jump right into, in 1998, you start King of the Cage.
Correct.
But how was Boss Rutan involved? Because I was under the impression that the first King of the Cage was called Boss Rutan's King of the Cage.
We did. We talked to Boss and said, Boss, can we use your name to vault the first fight?
Wow.
And I paid him $500. He didn't even want to take the money. Boss is another one of those guys.
He's a great guy.
Boss is another great guy, another class act. Would have done anything. If I'd asked him to commentate, he would have commentated. I mean, he's just a fantastic person. And again, there's just not that many of them, but you happen to be talking about two of them today. So we used Boss's name on the first show. We called it Boss Rutan's King of the Cage. And then legally, the legal team that was behind me got involved and said, you never know if you put something behind somebody's name, if something, is it over at that point if they make a mistake or if they get caught up in something? I said, yeah. So we didn't push forward with Boss Rutan, but Boss Rutan was really the pioneer for King of the Cage. He was the UFC champion at the time. My first fight prior to the King of the Cage was called Empire One. We held it in a tennis court in Corona. Wow. I got the athletic commission to approve me putting on the fights. They tried to cancel it the day of. I already had the approval. I already had the doctor. I already had the insurance, had the ambulance there. And Judo Gene LaBelle was the referee.
Wow.
Boss Rutan was there the day after his fight with Randleman. He had both black eyes after his win against Randleman.
I was at that fight.
One of the few guys that ever was able to win from the bottom, because he just kept elbowing the shit out of Randleman that time, from the bottom. So, Boss is one of those just super first class act guys.
Was that your first King of the Cage fight?
That was, it was Empire One. It was in a tennis court in Corona.
So I fought on the fourth King of the Cage, Marv Eastman?
But that wasn't called King of the Cage. That was called Empire One.
Okay,
Joe Stevenson fought on that card. He fought Joe Camacho. He was the wrestler with the wrestling shoes on. He triangled Joe Camacho, who's a rock star in his own. Joe Camacho's another
a lot of
guy.
fighters came out of King of the Cage.
Bro, there's a laundry list. I mean, we looked up some of the best fighters in the world. Diego Sanchez, Uriah Faber, TJ Dillashaw, DC, Sean Strickland, Thug Rose, Bobby Green, Rampage Jackson, Joe Stevenson.
Don't miss Tim Silva, Dan Cormier, Sean Strickland, Carlos Condit, Robbie Lawler, Sean Shirk, TJ Dillashaw, Demetrius Johnson, Ronda Rousey, Nico Montano, Rose Nakayumas. non-fry. That's just to mention 16 King of the Cage world champions in the UFC. People get excited, I'm putting my guy into the UFC. I'm not interested in putting guys into the UFC. That's not what I do. What I do is when they're ready and I know they can win in the UFC, that's when it's time for them to go. A lot of guys try to run early and they wash out, and then they expect me to be able to bring them back. I can't go to television and say, hey, I got the best guys that are not good enough to be in the UFC. I say I have the best guys, they just don't have the exposure that the UFC is getting at this present moment. And when they go to the UFC, they win. The Uriah Fabers,
TJ Dillashaw, Rose Namamu, Rampage.
Yeah, even the first 4 seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, 7 of the winners were King of the Cage. And these people that I mentioned, it's not like they fought for us one time. That group that I mentioned has over 100 fights combined in King of the Cage. So they were a long part of King of the Cage. Between Gladiator and King of the Cage, I believe Quentin fought seven times for us.
I was the first
8.
I was the first Gladiator Challenge champion.
Yes.
Oh, that's what I was gonna ask. So you got a strap for that fight, or did you already have it?
Gladiator, I never got champion in King of the Cage because he took me out, sent me to Pride before I could get the belt. But I wanted that King of the Cage belt for a long time.
Our ability to use him, he won the Gladiator Challenge, which is the qualifier for King of the Cage. But what we needed to do is he needed money. Okay, so we were running shows, so we put him on every show we could get him in to try to keep him. Try to keep him some money. How many
times were you fighting a year for King of the Cage?
He probably fought 8 times in a year.
In 1 year?
Yeah.
Bro, let me explain something to you. I left Memphis with nothing. I left a job, my family, my truck. I left everything, and I came out here, and I could only get a job at a Vietnamese bar, and I was only making like $45 a night, working like 3 nights. Bouncer.
Like you would just dance for people?
Shut the fuck up.
No, he was.
Do I look like a motherfucking dancer?
Hey, he was escorting all those little cute Vietnamese kids. I seen him with the best looking girls on the planet. I know.
What would you do at the bar though?
I was a bouncer.
Oh, at the bar. Oh, I thought you were I thought you said dancer. I couldn't hear you. My headphones. No, I thought you said you were no, Rampage. I wouldn't do you like. I thought you said I was a dancer at the Vietnamese. I wouldn't do you like that.
Hey, ask him what he wore at his first King of the Cage fight.
Somebody stole it. What do you wear?
A wrestling singlet.
Pull up Rampage Jackson. First King. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Keep going, Rampage.
Rampage versus Marvin Eastman.
Hey,
you gotta pull it up.
So you were working at a Vietnamese
bar.
Shut
up, man. We gotta guess here.
Well, I want to hear this.
Man. Shut up.
You left everything in Memphis.
We gotta guess here.
I want to know this. You left everything in Memphis. You came here. You were a dancer at a Vietnamese bar. Then what happened?
I was a bouncer.
I'm sorry, dude. The headphones. And then what happened?
Shit. Fat Man on Ehad, just like he said, he got me a fight in King of the Cage, and the rest is history. They kept me working, and then you put me in Gladiator Challenge.
Just so we could get extra fights, because if I just kept being King of the Cage, back then I was only doing 6 fights a year. Yeah. You might have been only get a fight every 3 months.
Yeah.
But the key is you needed money. We needed to figure out how to make it. Yeah. And at least I had enough control of Gladiator Challenge, even though I wasn't running it, I owned it. So when the footage was done, I owned all your footage from Gladiator Challenges all in my library, not in Gladiator Challenge's present library. So.
You don't know how much they helped me out because I had an apartment that my old friend that gave me, and he left with his wife and went to another apartment. I had to take over. The rent was like $700 a month for like a 1-bedroom apartment. I was like, oh, coming from Memphis, rent there was like
$180. Yeah.
For like a 3 or 4 bedroom.
Yes.
At the time that Rampage was coming to you, you talked so highly of him, and Fabiano Iha obviously was a very instrumental part of your career coming up. And I'm not whatever Rampage uses the word, he calls me honey baked ham or whatever when I talk good about him. But I want to be very clear about this. There's very few icons. That's one of the reasons why this JAXXON podcast is so successful. It's one of the reasons why I love working with this guy, because he's so humble for as much career success as he's had. Absolutely. So Fabiano Iha's involved. He sees something special in him. The chain that he bought from Home Depot sees something special in him. You saw something special in him. What was it about him that made you say, this guy, no matter win, lose, or draw, is going to be one of the best to ever do it?
You ever met a person in your life where you just walked up and you knew you liked them?
Yeah, Lloyd, Rampage's friend.
And like, you can't put a pinpoint on it right away, but it's everything about it. You feel like this is a trustable person. You feel like this person is a sincere person. You feel like somebody needs an opportunity, and you happen to have the ability to give opportunities, and you only have so many to give out, okay? And this guy is more deserving of it than anybody else. That's how I kind of felt. This guy is deserving of it, and we've got it. Let's run. Let's run together. I mean, the guy he fought in his first fight was an Olympic alternate for the Olympics as a wrestler. I mean, he fought a monster.
And they told me he was just a kickboxer.
Were you scared?
No.
You didn't care?
He didn't know any better.
I didn't know any better.
He didn't know any better. And by the time he had taken everything he had, and I realized that nobody's ever going to be able to hurt this guy. Okay. I'm like, wow. Can you imagine what he would have done in shape?
Bro, I was out of shape.
3 days.
I was 21 years old. I had a beer belly for the first time in my life.
Yeah. But you took it on 3 days' notice. What do you want? When you don't know you're going to fight, you took it on 3 days' notice.
So at the time, MMA, what was the landscape like? Because you were trying to build a career, and there was nothing really to build a career out of to replicate, because MMA wasn't what it is today. So you were going to be a pioneer of your own.
I had no idea that MMA was even going to be this big.
We were putting bigger crowds in than the UFC at that time.
But what was the landscape
just
like for you?
2,000 people. I saw a sport that had a cult-like Grateful Dead following, okay, that was trying to stay alive. But eventually, I just believe there's just no way that these people would ever give up on this sport. And eventually, it would become bigger. Somebody big would get involved, and whatever piece that became, and it eventually became the Fertitta brothers. The Fertitta brothers are the guys responsible for it.
You have a relationship with them?
I don't, because I've had a lot of, like in the early days, there was a lot of head-to-head confrontations. We walked into meetings right after they left the meetings. We were battling for a lot of the same things. The Best Damn Sports Show, which was the first...
Tom Arnold.
Yeah, which was the first show they ever put on regular television when they had, I think, a Chuck fight or a Tito fight on the Best Damn Sports Show. We pitched that to the Best Damn Sports Show. They came back to us and said, that's great, but we need $180,000 to do the production. I said, well, you guys are getting the benefits of it. Why would we pay for the production? Okay. So we came back to them and talked, how much can we turn this into? Okay, we'll pay for half the production. We'll pay for $90,000. They said, okay, we'll get back to you in 2 weeks. We left. The Fertittas were walking in. They paid $900,000 for the same spot that they offered it to us for $180,000. Would have signed it on the spot.
Wow.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We're getting some crazy MMA history.
I can't tell you.
Great guess.
Hey,
Rampage is hitting grand slams this week. And I'm not just talking about the chicks he's going home with in the bar. What? Hey, back then, was he pulling any chicks back then?
Hell no.
This guy was always pulling chicks. I mean,
Don't believe
there's not an Asian girl on the planet.
Asian?
There's not.
He liked Asians?
Liked Asian girls.
Wow.
Like if you were a guy, and your girlfriend was Asian, you couldn't get anywhere around the room. And it wasn't that he would chase them; they would chase him.
Oh, he loved it.
I'm telling you.
Run, force.
Yes.
Okay. So you walk in a room, there's 3 Asian girls, he's going home with all 3? How was it?
Yeah.
So he was unstoppable back then.
Unstoppable.
On and out of the cage.
He's my idol.
Yeah.
He's my idol.
Mine too.
Yeah, I mean, like from that standpoint.
He told me one time when I met him, you go to the Hello Kitty store, you buy something, you bring it to my chick, she's going to be here, and this is what, I'm like, damn, you really got a whole structure of how you keep these girls happy.
Hey, I thought he'd show up in a Hello Kitty suit.
Yeah. Because he used to do that, right, where you would dress up with you and your girls and play, right? Did you ever do that? Was that you? No?
Why would I have to dress up?
I thought you would Twitch live stream with like all the girls. No. Okay. Maybe it wasn't you. So back then he was the man. He was still pulling chicks.
To this day, I don't know any different.
To this day. Rampage Jackson. Hey, living up to expectations, Quentin. Give us some love.
I give it to you, but you don't get
Oh, I knew it was coming.
He always be trying to clown me. That's what.
No, I'm not clowning. Okay, let me ask you a question. His first fight that he went to King of the Cage, how did he show up to the fight? Was he crazy and cocky? Was he scared? Was he timid before the fight?
He was super quiet.
My first fight.
Super quiet. We didn't know there was anything special about him until during the fight we saw a guy that shouldn't have been competitive, and he was competitive. And if the fight would have went 20 seconds longer, he was so tired he couldn't stand up in between rounds. He sat down in his corner on the mat in between rounds and didn't think he could make it into the second round. And rightfully so. A guy that trains 3 days for a fight shouldn't be able to do it. But there was something inside this man that's not inside of a lot of men in the world. I wish there was more. I mean, I watch the elections right now, and it freaks me out seeing that we've gotten so soft worldwide. This guy, I would vote for this guy for president, because I know we would never, ever worry about another country anywhere in the world.
Who would be VP?
That's right.
Who would be the VP? Let's think. Who's the hottest Asian chick we could think of?
Get off that.
He's splitting boats. No?
Get off that. Come on, man. Come on.
It's true. Is it true that you left King of the Cage that night with a stretch limo with like 5 girls? I heard you took all the ring girls to a party that night. You guys went to some strip club in Norco on the way home. Is that true?
He didn't know what he accomplished that night, but he had won the hearts of every King of the Cage fan there. I can't tell you how many people. Nobody asks about a guy that didn't win his fight. I had like the ringside at King of the Cage, the 800 people were like 40 of my best friends and their 20 best friends each. And that's what it really was. I knew all 800 people, or I knew everywhere where those people bought their tickets at ringside. And like 15 people came up to me after the fight and go, that kid is something special. I said, I know he didn't win tonight, but if you could get him into better shape. I said, well, he took the fight on 3 days' notice, you know. And it was so easy to see. Everybody saw it. I mean, even the interview with Steven Quadros to this day, if I pulled up that interview, I could nail that interview word for word because it was that meaningful.
I'm gonna tell you the crazy thing is that you know, I wore my chain out and stuff to the fights, but the only time when I used to wear my chain is to the wrestling matches and to my fights. And I come back to the show. He invited me back. He said, "Bring that chain." He said, "Make sure you wear that chain when you here."
Because people didn't know his name. It was the guy with the chain. In the beginning,
the guy with the chain, and
the
how
guy
a
with the
full
chain.
circle moment.
Yeah, he the one. It put in my head like he was like Terry talked to me. He said, "Hey, make sure you wear the chain around. It's good promotion, man. It's good."
Yep.
I'm like, okay. And for years, I wore the chain when I went places.
People love you, man. They love you, and they're right about it. You know what I mean? They really are.
At the time, did you think, Rampage, because of the support you have, obviously you had an endless amount of support behind you. Everybody knew how great you are. And I think, all joking aside, I do want to say something. I think a lot of people judge someone outside of their sport or their craft to really understand them, right? So people who know Rampage,
right,
you got to judge him and understand that we, like for the people watching this, we get to hang out with him outside of fighting. I never trained with the guy.
Right.
I wouldn't last 1 minute. But like I got to go hang out with him. First time I met him, he invited me to a Vietnamese coffee bar. I was 21. So like, it's a true story. So my dad said, you really are going to go meet him there? And my dad said, well, just stay away from the girls that are fully naked and just hang out with the ones that are half naked. And so
yeah, he tips.
Yeah, that's what Rampage said. Bring a lot of ones and meet me here at 12. I go, all right. So like, but you know him. He's
Beach
a fun
Boulevard
guy.
and Garden Grove.
Beach Boulevard, Garden Grove, and Westminster.
There you go.
He's a Westminster king. That's what they used to call him. During COVID, you should. Oh, okay. We'll go back to that later. But like, what one thing is that this guy's very positive, very happy to be around, very always in a good mood. If he's not, you could tell. He wears his emotions on his sleeve. He's an honest guy. Back then, when the fighters were coming together, it seems like MMA community was a little bit different. The fighters all knew each other. They were fighting each other multiple times. There was a lot more rivalries and a lot more like narratives and stories and storytelling.
So many guys were training together that ended up fighting each other. I can't tell you when Lorenzo and Frank purchased the UFC and they started putting guys in the cage, I should have just put a couple $100,000 in a thing in Vegas because I knew who was going to win every one of those fights because I had seen most of those guys at one time or another train together, so I knew how they matched up. I didn't do that. I don't even know if it would have been legal for me to do that, but it was a very tight community back in the early days because everybody to a certain degree was working together to try to keep a sport alive that McCain and McMahon and Don King were trying to keep down because of it was affecting boxing, pro wrestling, and and they got McCain to step up behind it.
That's an interesting point. You're talking about Vince McMahon, right? WWE.
Yes.
So WWF, which turned into WWE, ended up later, 20 years later, combining with UFC. But that was the original organization trying to kill the UFC.
Absolutely.
Can you explain that for us?
Because there's only so much money available from television people on pay-per-view, and they held a strong spot in it. They whether it was 10% or 20% of the total take on pay-per-view for the year, the WWE was taking a huge percentage of that, as was professional boxing. And then all of a sudden this new sport comes in that the rules are kind of questionable. They're trying to keep it out, and it got 300,000-400,000 buys. At that point, people were like, whoa, this is competitive. We got to get these guys out. And they got John McCain, I believe he was the governor of Arizona at the time, to get behind them on a smear campaign and called mixed martial arts human cockfighting.
Yeah, I remember those days. Yeah.
Wait, did that ever bother you?
No, it didn't bother me because I knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't like that. I always thought that was a pretty safe sport because I always came to the sport as a brawler because I grew up fighting on the streets of Memphis and I thought this was pretty safe.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. On the street, a guy gets knocked down. Okay, what stops anybody from laying the boots to them at that point?
Nothing.
Once you get dropped, you might get a 1-2 and somebody rips you off. But once you can't defend yourself in this sport, you only take a limited amount of trauma. Even in boxing, when a guy gets dropped in boxing and he has a concussion and it's obvious, and he gets up and he holds on to make it through another round, he might fight another 25 or 30 minutes that night. He might take another 200-300 punches to the head after he's already been concussed. In MMA, we let it play out because it continues to play out. And it may look more brutal, but in the end, a guy with a concussion taking 2 or 3 punches compared to a guy that's taking 200 or 300 punches, you tell me what's safer. You know,
I heard years ago that UFC messed up the pay-per-view model where they had to pay.
They did. When I first signed into the pay-per-view, I had a limited, my first 10,000 buys went back to pay-per-view. And a lot of people weren't willing to step that up. So the UFC kind of froze everybody out by saying, okay, we're going to do this. So if any of the smaller guys want to jump up on pay-per-view and build their market, they're not going to be able to do that. And it was called a favored nation deal with the UFC, 10,000 buys. So as I was doing the pay-per-views in the early days and coming through on 7,500 and 8,000 and 9,000 buys, I had to make up that difference. So I was paying to be on pay-per-view in the early days. Even when Michael Westbrook fought for me, we thought we were going to get huge numbers, and we got like 8,000 buys. I still didn't make any money on that deal. The good news is at the end of it, when I had to settle up with them, they let me use my old footage and traded it in to buy off that time. So they never actually made me write a check. But because I was the guy that hung around and kept doing it, you know. But a lot of guys jumped on, did 1 or 2, lost, you know, that first 10,000 buys. You know, that's $300,000 at $30 a buy. So they're keeping the first $300,000, and it crushed all the little guys out.
That was smart by the UFC. You really think about it.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't have done that though if you could.
You know what? On that end, I wouldn't have been smart enough to pull that off.
You wouldn't have thought of that.
Nah, I wouldn't have thought of that. There's a lot of directions I go that I feel pretty crafty on, but television guys are a special. I mean, even when Dana was doing his television in the beginning, I can remember some of the deals he made until they got Marshall Zelaznik involved. Yeah. They had no real television going on in the UFC. Marshall Zelaznik took it, went over to Europe, built the Europe markets for the UFC. Eventually, when the new group came in and purchased it, Marshall Zelaznik got pushed off. But Marshall Zelaznik was my pay-per-view guy. He was the head of pay-per-view out of New York. And he was my guy before they took him. And then once he was no longer they took him and hired him and brought him in. So they had the right people. It was just a matter of the right time and making sure that the right people were making the right decisions. Dana made a lot of decisions in the early going that probably didn't sit very well with everybody. But, you know, again, I'm not a huge fan of him, but
you're not a huge fan of who?
I'm not a huge fan of Dana.
Why is that?
You know, I just think sometimes he tries to be somebody he's not.
They went to battle, bro. I mean, listen, him and Dana back in the early days, they went to battle. So they don't like
went to battle, like fought.
But I'm gonna tell you this, I'm
just fought.
No,
I would have.
Yeah, no, but
I would have. I offered it to K1.
It was UFC versus King of the Cage back in the day.
They threw Daisuke out of the office in Vegas when he offered to fight to him.
Bro, they was battling though. Listen, if Terry Trebilcock, King of the Cage, had a billionaire behind them,
yes,
it would be UFC. UFC wouldn't be. It would be King of the Cage up there right now.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm telling you. That's
but there were other guys too. You know, Monty Cox could have probably pulled it off. TJ Thompson was another really good guy. There were a lot of guys out there more qualified. He had the ability to learn on the Fertitas and the station's dollars, and he did. And you know, I got to give him credit right now. As tough as it is, I got to give him credit. He's done a brilliant job in the end.
Yeah.
But he spent a lot of money, and most people would
a lot of R&D.
Yeah, most people would have thrown in the towel long before he had the success.
Yeah, you got to respect. Yeah. You got to respect him.
You got to respect his belief.
Yeah, I did. You know, it's funny because I was at a football game. My last conversation with Dana is pretty funny. This would be great. This is great TV. I'm at a football game, and I'm sitting at the Rams playoff game.
Okay.
You know, and I got a girl sitting next to me, and she's talking. What do you do? I put on mixed martial arts. Yeah, my friend does that too. I said, yeah, but I've been doing it for like 25 years. She goes, I think he's been doing it longer than you. I said, I don't think so. She says, well, his name's Dana White. I said, well, he hasn't been doing it longer than me. She goes, I'm pretty sure he has. I said, no, when I started, he was parking cars at the station's casino and teaching Brazilian jiu-jitsu classes. No, and teaching women's kickboxing classes at what was his name? At John Lewis's school up in Las Vegas. So she called him up and she strutted out and said, oh, he said you were parking his cars and stuff like that. So I get a call from Dana and he goes, hey, and I'm at one of my shows in Omaha, Nebraska. He goes, I hear you said you were, and he's got her on the line. And she goes, I heard you said you were I was parking your cars. I said, I didn't say you're parking your cars, but did you not park cars? I said, you know, is that something you have to be ashamed of? And he got pissed off, right? I said, you know, listen, Dana, if you got something, you know where I'm at every week. You know where my fights are every week. And he hung up. And that was it. That was
always a woman. It's always a woman that's got to start some shit.
Like this.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. I mean,
What, was she bad?
She was a badass. Yeah.
But you just keeping it real though.
Yeah, I was keeping it real. I was like, listen, when I was doing this, he was doing this. Okay. And she spun it into he was parking my car.
Yeah,
You know, which is complete.
Girls.
True.
It's always the girls.
They do the shit like that all the time, brother.
Yeah.
What's wrong with these girls?
They want attention.
They like drama.
Yeah, they
like drama.
they got to have it. They got to be in the middle of something going on.
Yeah.
That makes sense. They like drama.
But I hope you and Dana become cool one day.
You know, I don't think he'll ever be cool with me. I can be cool with him. He's earned, not that it'll ever matter for him, but he's earned the point where he got over the hump. I saw a lot of the things that he was doing going, man, you're leaving stuff on the table all over the place. And, you know, they're doing great now. Yeah. And he's done great. He's done great for the sport. You know, some people think he's a little too tough on things. It's got to be that way, unfortunately.
I tell you what, at the end of the day, I respect you. Take nothing away from Dana. I respect you more because you always kept it real with me and stuff like that. And you never fucked me over out of anything. You know, I will always ride with you. I'm coming to your fight October 5th.
I can't wait. That'll be fun. We had almost 7,000 people out at the last show in San Bernardino, and I'm really, really looking forward to this one coming up. The second induction of the King of the Cage Hall of Fame. So I'm hoping to have you and Dean Lister, Javi Vasquez, Uriah Faber. Hoping to have these guys, Joe Stevenson, back, or even Ernie Perea. All back as the first induction group to welcome the second group to be inducted into the Hall of Fame.
That'd be great. I miss those guys. We got to have Dean Lister and Joe Stevenson on one day.
Dean Lister's coming.
Oh, yeah.
We talked to him. Do you have like a King of the Cage, a Hall of Fame ring or belt or anything that you give?
They have belts.
Yeah.
They get King of the Cage belts, and it says Hall of Fame.
Do you have yours still?
Yeah, you want me to bring it in one day?
Yeah, why don't you bring it in?
I should have brought it today.
Yeah, you should have brought it. Damn.
Yeah, you know what? The problem is I just flew in last night, and we had one early today, the earliest I ever had to been up here. And I didn't even put deodorant on today.
No, but he wouldn't miss this. Yeah. You smell that? Yeah,
you don't smell it, though.
No, he
I don't smell, though.
Hey,
You don't smell that.
I thought there was a zoo next door. I smell zoo dirt.
Hey, Chad, zoo dirt. Don't believe them. Yeah, they couldn't even tell.
Dude, I hope the girls are watching this and find out that you smell like zoo dirt. Now I'm next.
No.
It's a clean dude. This is a clean dude.
I still smell good.
I've ran in the car with him to different restaurants, we'll call them, around the Philippines on several occasions. He always smelled good.
Oh, let me tell you about
I can't ever bust him up and call him the zoo dirt.
Restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Restaurants.
Hey,
let's hear it.
Hey, this guy invited me to one of the craziest pool parties I ever been to in my life. He calls me up one day. He was like, "Hey, Quentin, you want to go to a pool party in the Philippines?" I was like, "Man, that's a long flight." He said, "It's going to be 230 something." I said, "When is this party?"
Hey, and 40 guys.
Oh my God.
I flew out there
For a pool party.
just for a
You
pool.
flew to the Philippines for a pool party.
He paid me to host a pool party.
Yes.
How long was the pool party?
Pool party lasted about 4 hours, but there was probably about 400 girls and about 40, 50 guys. We had a very short person, about 3'7", in a tuxedo serving tequila in a pool that was filled with foam all the way up to the top in a little boxing ring. So he had a pitcher of tequila and he was pouring shots for everybody there. Money was raining off the top. Him and I started with 20 pesos. By the time we were done, it was 1,000 pesos going off the top.
Man, it was the craziest thing. When you make it rain in the Philippines, it's
breaking nails and scratching eyeballs out.
Craziest thing.
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
How long did you stay there for? Why you like
Man, I stayed there for the whole party. He had the hottest one in a bird cage in the middle of the pool. Nobody could get to him. The hottest one.
Bro.
Hey, I don't know what he's talking about.
What is going on here, dude? Full Shamu splash zone at SeaWorld. Rampage jumping in the pool.
I was thinking about jumping in that water, swimming on like trying to shoot my shot. He had the hottest one in a bird cage in the middle of the pool.
Y'all
Bro,
crazy.
it was the sickest
Pull
pool
any
party.
chicks?
No, I ain't pulling nothing.
He pull any chicks? No, you laughing. He pull any or no?
Nah,
I don't remember anything.
They weren't chicks?
I don't
What did you
remember.
say?
I can say this.
I don't
What'd you
remember
say?
anything.
They weren't chicks?
All I know is the presidential suite that he was staying in.
Okay.
Was this giant circle. Okay. And in the middle was a giant jacuzzi, but the jacuzzi was connected to all four rooms. So if you slid the curtains back on each wall, the entire wall was glass. So you could be in the jacuzzi, your buddy could, but you didn't have to share the same bathwater.
Yeah, it was slick the way they invented it. Like,
Yep.
the guy was like 17 years old when he designed that shit.
Yep.
Man,
I don't remember this.
Because I've been there. I know the people that I know. It's the ABC Hotel.
If you've ever been to the ABC Hotel,
you would know what I'm talking about.
If you haven't, you need to look it up.
Yeah.
Their slogan is "You only live once," and it is "You only live once." That place is sushi bar, restaurant, helicopter pad on top of the roof of his place. They had a helicopter. If you wanted to take the helicopter and go visit some of the islands, you could take off and visit some of the islands. I mean, it was incredible.
It was incredible.
So you guys traveled the world together a little bit.
Oh, man, I was proud of him because you remember when I was fighting in Japan, he wouldn't fly back then.
Yeah.
I wanted him to go with me.
Yeah, it was Xanax became a drug that you could take for a flight. And I took it, and I was just like drooling all over myself, and I finally got there. And yeah, but the first flight, I would have loved to have gone with him. I actually had to send my buddy Mark Davidson with him. He's like, what if he doesn't want to come back? You have your house up there. I said, oh, he's coming back. He goes, okay, I'm going to tell him he's coming back. I said, it's not like you're going to do anything about it. He goes, no, but I'm going to tell him he's coming back.
Let me tell you the story about your buddy. I love him.
Davidson's awesome. He's an acquired taste, just so you know.
No, he's a good guy. I love him because we got that special bond.
Yes.
He went there. Listen, I was sleeping on my flight to Japan. Somehow I got 4 rows or something, and I passed out.
This is going to be about the Japanese girls. Go
Man,
ahead.
you
Go
remember-
ahead.
I remember
I know, but tell me. I want to hear more. I want to hear it again. It's a good story.
I wake up, and this hot-ass Japanese girl was sitting next to me, and I'm chatting with her the whole time, and he see me chatting to this Japanese girl, and he comes and chat her up and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, it's cool. And so he ends up getting her phone number and everything, and so he like cockblocked me. Your boy cockblocked me. He cockblocked me, bro. The girl was hot, and she was sitting next to me.
You know why he remembers it? Because it's the only time it's ever happened in his life. But go ahead.
No, I've been cockblocked several times. And make a long story short, he gets the girl, he gets her number and everything, and it's all good. And so I go and fight Sakuraba, and I go out partying afterwards. I go out to the clubs in Roppongi. I'm drinking. I come back to the hotel, and I'm lit, I'm buzzed and stuff, and I'm walking through the lobby, and I see her. And she was like, where's Mark? I was like, I don't know. He might be up in his room. So I go up, I take her, I say, I know his room is. I go up and I take her up to his room and I knock on his door. No answer. I said, what is going on? He might be asleep because this is probably like 2 a.m. or something like that. And she said she's been down there for hours waiting on him. So I go
that's the way those Japanese groupie girls are, though.
Yeah.
They'll sit in the lobby the entire night waiting for a fighter to show up.
Yeah. And so I called his room. He don't pick up. And she was like, well, I live so far away and there's no more trains. I was like, well, I don't care. You can crash here on my couch. You want to sleep here on my couch? She said, yeah, okay. And I'll just leave in the morning. I said, all right. And then she spent the night. Remember, she was sitting next to me at first, so I guess she liked the dark meat a little bit better. Before you know it, she was in the bed with me. And I was like,
oh yeah.
She was bad. She was bad.
Yeah.
She was bad.
Cupcaking, you were cuddling.
Man, I took care of business.
Yeah, you stood
I'm
on
single,
business.
man.
You stood on business.
I'm 21 years old.
Did you stand on business?
I stood on business.
Did you stand on business?
And I hopped on business.
Did you stand on business?
I stood on it, hopped on it.
You hopped on business?
Jumped on it.
That's my dog.
I did everything on business.
That's when I could support this man.
Ask him what his favorite wrestling move was.
What, the power bomb?
The power bomb. Did he power bomb her? That's the
hell
question.
yeah.
Hello.
I power. And
Hello.
But end of the story, the next morning.
It gets better now.
The next morning.
We're not talking stirring Quaker at all here.
No.
Go ahead.
Oh, the next morning, I'm leaving my room and he's walking out at the same time. He was like, he was like, oh, here, you can have it back.
Oh my.
He got mad. I was like, bro, I did the right thing. Did I not do the right? Even though
That's not the right thing.
He absolutely
I can't support that.
I support it. I
That's the
absolutely
right
did
thing?
the right
everything
thing.
I said was the truth. I did the right thing. I knocked on his door and I called his room.
Oh, you going back to that?
I did the right thing, but she spent the night with me.
But she didn't have a place to stay. I mean, you don't want the girl
that is true.
to have to sleep on the
No,
train all the way home.
A taxi cab.
God, you're so right. You're so
Bro,
right.
a taxi cab would have cost her like maybe like $80, $100.
So you were a gentleman.
A train ride would cost her like what, 50 cents or something like that?
What did a rampage ride
What a
cost her?
gentleman. Oh, the rampage ride.
She got that for free.
She got
The rampage ride.
She got a rampage ride for free.
She didn't have to pay for nothing.
All access. No wait zone.
I didn't have to buy no dinner. I didn't have to buy no drinks.
Wow. Man, you really figured out the Matrix way back then.
What? I was just being a gentleman.
Yeah,
And
you
at
were
the
a
same
gentleman.
time, I got rewarded with some cookies.
Yes.
You love cookies, don't you, huh?
Hey,
You
come on.
love cookies, don't you?
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what? I'm gonna tell you, this world would be a better place if every man loved cookies.
He likes the lemon wafer the best.
Lemon wafers.
The lemon wafer cookie.
Oh yeah.
What's that mean?
He don't. Hey,
It's a yellower cookie.
he don't.
He don't like the cinnamon cookies. He don't like cinnamon cookies
I
at
didn't.
all.
I didn't tell you everything about Bear's grandfather. Then he don't look at the world the same way we look at the world.
How do you look at the world? No, I told you I like girls. Rampage said he likes everything.
No,
I said,
no.
What? Is that what you meant?
No, it's the other way around.
Wait, what do you mean?
he likes the taste of the rainbow.
You're out of your mind. You see what I got to do with? He walks in one day with a bag of Skittles. Yeah, I'm like, what are you doing with that? I didn't know you couldn't do that.
He's still figuring. Hey, he's young. He's still figuring himself out.
I ain't young and 33. How am I young? 33.
That's young compared to us, man. We grown men.
What are you, 16? What are you?
I'm 46.
You look like you're 35.
Damn
You've been
right.
doing something in
That's 'cause
Colombia.
he's eating right.
That's
Yeah.
right. Eating
Oh,
right.
you a good man.
Eating and living right.
He's been living, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to say, obviously you don't look old yourself. Looks like you're in your 20s still. You've been doing this for 50
I've been
years.
eating a lot.
Nah, you look great.
Hey, man.
I went from 218 to 260 like that.
Bro, you living a good life though. You out fishing in Mexico.
I love my life. I wouldn't change my life for anything. I you know, when I get up in the morning, I think, wow, I could keep doing this. I could make more money doing this. But in the end, I'm doing the stuff that I want to do every single day. And I feel like, I've got good friends. I've got family. I get a chance to spend time with my friends and my family. I get a chance to do the stuff I want. It's like, nothing else really seems to matter. It doesn't matter like it used to, you know?
Yeah.
All the other stuff mattered. Now it's kind of gotten simpler.
I like the way I like a simpler look at life sometimes because we do live in a complex time. And I think if you can tone it down a little bit for the things that actually make you happy, you'll realize half the things that you think you need, you don't even need.
No.
You don't want, you just think you want them.
Right. And you end up not even using them, and then you sell them off at a garage sale or give them to somebody else that's not going to use them.
Yeah.
And how much stuff we have in America, when you get a chance to go around the world and see what other people have, you're like, wow, we have a lot of shit.
Yeah, I told Rampage the other day, I said, you don't need the blue cheese. You don't even use them. I mean, you ain't ever out. You know what I'm saying?
So I'm going to put it out here.
Yeah.
I'm working on doing a show in the Philippines. And if I get to do a show in the Philippines, I know this gentleman right here is going to want to come
Oh,
to
no,
Damn
don't
right.
say
But
that
I'm going to
out
try to
loud.
convince him of something.
Don't say it
I'm going
out
to try to
loud.
convince him of doing a pro wrestling match while he's there. I think he should do something, whatever it costs. I mean, I don't know what kind of fee something like that costs, but I think he should do something non-combative. But to be involved.
I'm all in for him wrestling. I'm
Say-
all in
say
for
less.
Rampage wrestling.
Say less.
Especially with 20 girls in the Philippines.
Because his first pro wrestling match was with me.
I forgot all about that.
Him and Mayhem Miller at Saboba had a pro wrestling match back in the day. We had a little person's match. It was supposed to happen, but our little person was too big. They came in at about 5'4", so they were not an official little person. And Rampage and Mayhem Miller were the main events. So that was the highlight.
And how'd the event go?
It went really well. It was a lot of fun.
How did you control Mayhem Miller and Rampage Jackson at the same time?
You know what? It's funny. Mayhem Miller, if you don't try to control him, you get a lot out of him. If you try to control him, you got your hands full because you just can never do it. I love that guy. I think he's a really good dude. A really good dude.
Before we move on from the Hall of Fame thing, do you give out rings, Hall of Fame rings?
Just belts.
Just belts.
I give
whatever
out
it
belts to Hall of
costs. The
Fame.
Jackson podcast will pay for an official King of the Cage Hall of Fame ring for Rampage Jackson,
Okay.
so he can wear it on the show and always support King of the Cage.
Oh, I'm down.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make you a trade then.
Yeah,
You let me know what one of these costs because this is super cool.
Yeah.
What are these officially called? Because
These are the
coolest
Jackson
chain.
Cuban link chains. These
Okay.
are our best-selling chains. But here's what I was going to tell you: Jackson is going to give you chains for all your winners at King of the Cage. We're going to send them for this event that Rampage is going to in October.
Wow.
And then we want to we can help you make it because Jackson can make all the rings. But we want to do the presentation for the Rampage Jackson Hall of Fame ring at that event.
Awesome.
And you can bring it, and then we'll give you money to get the second one for the second generation.
Awesome.
Because we want to make sure that when he's on the show, he can wear something. I see your big Super Bowl ring over there.
Yeah, this one is, believe it or not, this is a Cigario ring. I got a group of buddies. We smoke cigars together, and you know the Sicario is a Mexican hitman.
Yeah.
Well, this is a Cigario. It's a hitman, but it's shooting a cigar out instead of a bullet out of the end.
It looks amazing.
Bro, it said F3 on there.
Yeah, that's what F, fighting, fishing. What else?
Wait, you're telling me?
Fight for freedom. F3. Look at that F3 fuel.
Bro, wait, you
Look
didn't
at
know
that.
Rampage is...
Fighting, fishing, and what?
Fuck it.
Wait, that's what F3 stands for?
No, that's not what F3 stands for. That's not the energy
Hey,
drink.
that's what that F3 stands
That's
for.
what
But
F3
that's
stands
for your brand?
Yeah.
No, it's just listen. This is something I always thought about. I thought that Terry and I we had a lot. We like a lot of things. We got a lot of things in common. He's a good. That's why I look up to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as soon as I saw the F3, I was like, it confirmed my thoughts. Why I've always liked him since the first time I fought for him.
I love it. And I appreciate you coming. I know you have a busy time
Hey,
right now.
if you want to have me back, if I can be of any assistance,
Yeah.
I love to sit and
Nah,
be able to
this is
spend
amazing.
time
You always
with my
welcome him.
friends. You know what I mean?
Whenever, we know you're a busy man. Whenever you got time, I really appreciate you even saying yes to coming down here to talk with me and shit.
There's
man.
zero chance I would say no. You
So
know?
I got two questions for you.
I was just humbled to be invited.
No, he wanted you on when we originally started the show. We were sitting down. And I said, "Hey, who's a couple of the guests that we should have on first?" And your name was on that list. So I hope you think about that at night. This guy was thinking about you before any legendary fighter, before any manager, any agent. And all he does is talk good about you. And on every podcast, when your name comes up,
The best promoter in
this guy
MMA, brother.
puts respect on your name.
How many times in contact sports can you say that a promoter and a fighter were truly friends? Show me it. Show me another one.
Hard for me to see that.
You know what I
Hard for
mean?
me to see that.
But everything that I asked of him, he did, and he did it better.
I think it's also-
and I felt the obligation to do the same. So it wasn't like it was me giving him the opportunity. It was him giving me as much opportunity. I mean, my history of, he got mad at me one time because he saw like a DVD that they had in a warehouse and it had his picture on it, and he acted like I did that. I'm like, no. That's what the people that license the right to, like, everybody license rights to stuff, and that's what they do. And you get a check at the end, and sometimes you get a check, and sometimes they say, well, it didn't make any money. You don't get any check. You know how that goes.
Yeah. I guarantee you, it was somebody rallying me up.
What were you mad about?
I don't know. I normally don't give a fuck
would
about
say it was
stuff like
bad.
that.
I think he busted my chops because he didn't like the picture that I used.
Oh, that's probably what it is.
that's true.
And let me tell you, the picture was super, super cool. And I don't know why he didn't like it, because he looked like a young boy, but yet he was still shredded in the picture. So I don't know why he didn't like that picture.
I don't like a lot of my pictures.
Yeah, this
I can
picture you
attest.
really look good in, because every time
He
I
looks
showed
great in
that
all the
picture,
photos, and he's always yelling at me. I don't like that photo of me. He's like, I don't even want photos. I'm like, bro, you're a model. Get
Hey,
over it.
When I showed that DVD and I gave some of them out at the show, all the Asian girls came up and wanted a second copy.
love
can
you.
Can you find that to sign it? Can you find him to sign it? Like, he's not here today.
Yeah, you guys.
They love you. They love you.
Now, look.
They love you.
I just want you guys.
Rampage
So what you
loves
got to
it
do
back.
is you got to rate the different Asian girls for me in category. Which ones do you think are the most beautiful out of all the Asian girls?
Okay, so this is gonna get me in trouble. This is gonna get me in trouble. But
Yeah, but it's
about my opinion.
It's in general.
It's
I
girls
don't want to
you've
get you
been
in
with.
trouble.
It's just girls
because
you've been with.
You may have a girlfriend right now that
got four.
that's not
4 or 5.
That's not.
He's lying.
Yeah, that's not
6.
in the top of the group. It doesn't mean she's not the hottest of all of
Okay.
them. So,
So-
I'll clear that up for
all
you
right,
right
so-
now. I put you on the spot.
all right, put me on the spot. So for me, in my opinion, I think Vietnamese girls are the hottest Asian girls.
Why is that?
The mix of the French and the Chinese is a pretty strong
It's-
mix.
it's-
They are really pretty.
Who's second?
Second, for me is all opinion Japanese.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And third?
Third, if I would say Korean, but most of them have like plastic surgeries.
Correct. They're a lot more cosmetic than all the other Asians.
But you're speaking from experience. These are girls you've been with just your
No.
personal
It's not
experience.
girls I've been with.
Oh.
It's like girls with me. See, because I don't typically date Vietnamese girls, but they're the
number
hottest
one.
ones. But they're the hottest ones. But I don't typically date Vietnamese girls, especially in Orange County, because they don't like niggas.
Oh, my God. That's not true.
That's true.
That's not true.
If that's the case, what does that have to do with him?
Yeah, that's not true.
Wait, you're black?
I'm black as
All this time? I didn't even know.
I'm black as fuck.
Holy shit. This whole time I thought Quentin was just another white guy with a funny name.
Quentin.
That's what my family say when I go back home. They say,
Quentin.
you talk like a white guy.
Hey, you got to get that bass in your voice, you know? You've been hanging around with these guys too much.
Too motherfucking long,
Well,
man.
I talk with a high pitched voice. I talk like
Yeah. You talk like a
what?
Yeah. You talk like Michael Jackson. You sound like Michael Jackson when you talk.
You got to see Eddie Murphy in Beverly Hills Cop. It's
Yeah.
probably before your time, but it's a movie you should watch, because one of the black police officers walks up and he goes, "And we're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe." And he goes, "Oh, you're not going to fall for the banana in the tailpipe?" He says, "Brother, it needs to come out. I ain't falling for no banana in a tailpipe." He says, "You've been hanging around this guy too much." So when you see Beverly Hills Cop, you will see that scene and crack up.
Oh my God, it's incredible.
Yeah, what's your top age? Because listen, I don't have an Asian problem. I used to. I used to because the reason why because
You can't say that with a straight
No,
face.
true. Because Asian women treat you the best out of women I dated.
Correct.
That's why I like Asian women.
Correct.
But what's your favorite?
I feel that I agree. Filipinos have really beautiful and some that aren't so beautiful. It kind of like you're either hot or you're not if you're Filipina. But I think the hot ones that have a little bit more of like the caramel skin, I think to me I find to be the beautiful.
The what?
I mean,
he's saying something. You got to pay attention to what he's saying. He's being really nice.
Yeah,
Way
you're
saying
talking about the what skin?
the caramel colored skin.
Caramels.
Yeah.
He's talking about
like in the Philippines, they want everybody to be white. Yeah. So if you go in there, it's the number one country in the world selling bleaching cream. If you look at all their billboards, every one of them looks white. But the ones that we seem to like here a little bit more are the ones with a little bit of the caramel skin. I think the Vietnamese and the Filipinos kind of sit the highest of all for beauty. And you see like in the beauty pageants, Miss Filipino has won it a couple times where most of the Asian countries don't compete. I don't find the Japanese girls as hot because they're not as athletic. They like to be soft. Like if you're a Japanese guy and a Japanese pro tennis lady is there, she couldn't get a date with the Japanese guys. Japanese guys don't like girls that look athletic at all. So if you find an athletic looking girl in Japan, she can't get a date with the locals. You know, it's just weird country to country.
Yeah, the one thing I like about the Japanese girls, I like their bodies. Like some of them, I like the thicker ones. Like you know what I'm talking about. Like the Pyrenean girls, I didn't like them. They was cute in the face, but they were too skinny. Right. So when it's all about preference. Yeah. And I like the thicker ones. And over there, the Japanese guys, they don't like the thicker ones.
Pro Elite had some thicker ring girls.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they had a few.
Did you ever take home any of the King of the Cage girls?
No, I never.
Any Pride girls?
I don't remember. Well,
He did.
Remind me. I don't remember.
Let me think. Was there a blonde girl?
Yeah, I did. But that was later. It was later.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
That's right. I did. I had a white girl.
Shame on you for not telling us about the history.
I forgot it. It's been so long ago.
Shame on you trying to hide.
He had his pick of the litter every single time.
We dated, but we never got to that level though. It was like a long distance.
You never got past first base?
No, I never smashed. But she was a sweetheart and stuff like that. But guess who was moving in on me at the same time?
James Lee.
James Lee
was in on that.
James Lee.
Wow.
James Lee was dating her at the same time.
Wow.
James Lee.
Yep.
And I liked her. She was a sweetheart.
Yeah.
What was her name?
I don't remember.
I plead the fifth. You guys are trouble. You guys have been in trouble for a long time.
Oh man, yeah. But see, look, I like more than just Asian. Everybody think I only like Asian.
No, that's not true.
He just
I've known you
the
for
only ring
almost
girl
10
I
years.
dated was a white girl.
You didn't even date her. You didn't get past first base.
Well, we was a long distance.
Friends. She friend zoned you. That's your fault.
I mean, it's tough having Asian ring girls.
Why are you laughing?
When your wife is Asian.
Wait, hold on.
So that makes it more complicated.
Yeah,
so
he had a beautiful wife.
Yeah, had.
Wait, you had an Asian wife?
Had I not had an Asian wife my whole life, basically, he'd have had more Asian ring girls at the show, and he'd have probably dated them all. You know,
my head's spinning right now.
His wife was at every fight, and she wasn't playing no games. She's a sweetheart, but she wasn't playing no games.
My head is spinning. I'm glad to see someone can actually tell us the factual history of your dating life.
I hit. Hey, when I went to the UFC, my first fight in the UFC, I hit on Eric. What's her name?
Ariane Solis?
Right away.
Yeah.
Well, I thought she was Asian. When I found out she was a Mexican, I was like, oh.
No, she's half Filipino.
Is she half Filipino?
Half Filipino.
She was just here.
Mexican,
I know. We
Filipino.
friends now. I don't hit on her. I hit on her one time, got shot down. Then after that,
Ariane Solis shut you down
right away.
I don't believe it.
I don't believe it.
She's
the nicest girl in America.
She only thought he was playing. Otherwise, she
I was straight up.
What did you say to Ariane Solis? So Ariane Solis, I hope you're watching this. This is just going to be.
It's true story.
What happened?
I hit on her. I got shot down.
What'd you do?
You miss every shot you don't take.
But what shot did you take that got missed? How'd you do it?
I'm sure I was respectful, and I probably led with something funny, but I don't remember. I just remember.
You lead with love?
I'm ugly, so I got to lead with jokes. I got to make them laugh.
Okay, so what'd you say?
I don't remember, man. This is years ago,
No,
man.
you do. You want to laugh so hard.
My memory is
you
not
want to
that
laugh
good.
so hard right now.
I have to ask him.
Yeah.
Did you say, I pity the fool?
No.
When you first saw her?
No. I'm going to tell you what I said.
Okay.
This was way before the UFC. Way before.
I was thinking that was the only way you could have missed.
No, it was way before I did the movie. This is right before I won the belt. This was like before I fought Chuck or after my first fight. But I think I said, "Hey, did you fall from heaven? Because I eat ass."
Ariane, I'm sorry I made him say that. I'm so sorry. Now it all makes sense why he didn't go say hi to her when she was here last week.
No, I didn't say that.
Tongue in the dumper. I can't believe it.
I'm just joking. Guys, I don't eat. It's a funny joke. I don't.
You do?
I don't.
You told me the other day I love eating groceries. No, you told me that the other day.
Why would I tell you?
You were telling me the only thing I hate is when I eat groceries, I get a little nibble and then there's some residue, and you're like, I hate that. And I said,
Jared, don't
he's got the flavor saver.
Yeah,
Going on. He's got the flavor saver.
I want the flavor saver.
Yep.
You're laughing because you know you told me
no,
this.
Man. You were my boy, and he's getting in on your jokes.
Don't say this. Don't say
my
this.
favorite promoter against me.
Today, Quentin went from white to brown to red.
Yes. Thank you. Rampage, thank you. We were at Popeye, Dave & Buster's. You were eating a chicken wing, and you go, no, when I eat groceries, this is what I do. And then he was doing a demonstration in front of our staff. I go, he's an HR nightmare, first of all. I said, thank the Lord this is outside the clock. HR nightmare at Dave & Buster's.
I always been, I haven't like in interviews, I've always been good at King Cage, right?
You're the best in interviews, but you are a liability in public.
You think
you shut down a whole roller coaster at the OC Fair?
Hey, you think he's a liability? Try putting Crazy Horse on the mic for 5 minutes.
Oh my God, yeah.
Crazy Horse is like, he could say something unbelievable, and he could say something unbelievable. I mean, you just don't know. He such a talented, such a good athlete. He was another one that I found we just couldn't get him to be able to live with society. Like if he just was every day fighting in the ring, it would have been great. But when he got outside of that, it was like, I mean, he had 18 driving driving without a driver's license in Florida. It was like, how many times did I have to bail him out of jail because he would tell the judge, Judge, I just like to drive. I'm like, after 18 times, you figure he'd learn, but he didn't.
Did you hear? I just heard he recently just broke his losing streak. He had like a 27 fight losing streak.
Yeah.
Or some shit.
I keep wanting to bring him out, but I don't like to bring guys out when they're like that, because they almost get to at that point in their career when they expect to lose every fight. And I just don't want to bring out any stars. Like even at the end of Tony Lopez, he wasn't losing every fight. But when he was getting to be 45, 46 years old, and a guy that is so tough, Tony Lopez has a chin like Quentin. Okay, sorry, I keep calling you Quentin, man.
No, that's my name.
But that's my name. That's how
I'm okay with it. That's
okay.
my name.
So when I saw a guy like that, and he was starting to get to 45, 46 years old, and he was taking a lot of punches, I was like, Tony, I don't want to use you anymore. I don't want to have to look at your kids and say I let you fight too long. I just didn't want to do it. And he's unbelievable. Every fight that he fights is an unbelievable fight.
Guy.
Yeah,
I love Tony Lopez. One time I had to corner him. I don't know if you remember that, because I can't remember which King Cage it was, but he had got his hair done, braided in different colors, and he was worried about messing up his hair before his fight, so he slept with his head off the side of the bed and had a crick on his neck next day. I was like,
oh no!
I was like, Tony, what are you doing, bro? Like,
that is a crazy
Tony
thing.
Lopez probably got concussed in every fight he ever fought. Oh. I can't think of a fight he didn't get dropped in the first or second round, and then people would think they were finishing him, and he was just getting started. You know, they would run out of gas in the third round trying to finish him, and he'd just be smiling, and at the same slow, methodical, and all of a sudden that kick that you could get away from early, you can't lift your hands up late. He'd throw a kick and kick you in the head and knock you out. Tony Lopez was one of the greatest warriors in the history of King of the Cage. If I put other guys down, it would be Tony Lopez, it would be Richard Solis, it would be Quentin Jackson, and Bobby Hoffman. Those are
Bobby Hoffman.
Yeah, those are the guys when it didn't matter what you did to them, they were still going to be there at the end of the fight. Just unbelievable.
And tell me about Uriah Faber. I was at one of his first fights. He got kicked in the face.
Yeah,
and he's going in for a shot. And you remember that fight? He still took that guy down.
Yeah. Uriah Faber was a monster. I mean, he was just, we had him for a long time, maybe 4 or 5 years. Wow. And when I thought he was truly the best in the world, I put him against Hiroyuki Abe, who was the top Shudo guy at that weight class. They fought at State Line at Buffalo Bills, 4,500 people there. And he fought 4.5 rounds against him and just destroyed him. And then he fought Bibiano Fernandez, who a lot of people thought was going to be the next best in the world. It was kind of like an Arona. It was kind of like your fight with Arona. Yeah, you got great jiu-jitsu, but I'm too tough. I'm just too physically tough to play the jiu-jitsu game. And when you bounced Arona on his head, he caught him with an elbow, and he had almost got submitted 4 or 5 times. But one time he caught him with an elbow across the forehead, and it split Bibiano Fernandez open. Bibiano went to be maybe the greatest fighter in the history next to, could be Demetrius Johnson too, but could be one of the best fighters in ONE FC's history, Bibiano Fernandez. And there's a classy guy too. You know, there's a lot of really good people, but there's more bad ones. I'm just lucky enough to be around a lot of the good ones still.
Yeah. So one thing I want to ask you before we get ready to wrap this up, first of all, thank you again. I just want to make sure you understand that we do support fighting in all formats. And I want to say that King of the Cages has been instrumental in pioneering MMA for all these fighters and all the sport in terms of its history, because without you giving these guys platforms, people wouldn't have been able to have careers. So I hope that you understand that the MMA community appreciates you for that. We definitely do. Rampage definitely keeps you or your name going strong here. Who are your top 5 favorite fighters of all time?
Without a doubt, number one is Quentin Jackson.
Nah, he just
without a doubt. Whether I was on his podcast or I was somewhere else where he would never hear it, it would be Quentin Jackson 100% of the time.
Respect.
I like a guy who goes in and puts it all out on the line every time. And he put it all out on the line every time. He never went in there and tried to coast to a victory. He never took the easy way.
Agreed.
But I really believe more in the Japanese philosophy to a certain degree. I don't believe in the works. I don't believe in fights that you're trying to create situations that change the fight itself. But I do believe in the fact that in the end, the guy who goes out and is the most entertaining guy, this is entertainment before it's fighting. Like, if fighting is great, but fighting with entertainment, I mean, think about it. Conor McGregor could have been put up against Olympic wrestlers time after time after time and never won a fight. You know what I mean? And I'm not taking anything away from Conor because he's a very good fighter. But his personality was so great. His striking was so awesome. To watch him go out and do the things that he did, the UFC, the new group of the UFC didn't understand that in the early days. They would have screwed him up in the early days. But when they got to the point where they understand that a guy that's marketable, now they got that guy Patty, and they had the other guy. They have a few characters now in the UFC that they can actually market around. If they continue to run that direction, they will continue to make more money and more money and more money.
Yeah.
But I think they missed it really in the early days. I saw it in Quentin. I saw it in Crazy Horse. Bobby Hoffman was the bad seed. I mean, who would call themselves the bad seed? Bobby Hoffman. You know, there were several guys in the early days that really, really had something special. So 1, Quentin Jackson. 2 would probably be Crazy Horse. 3, Javi Vasquez. I thought he was the best in the world at 155 pounds while he was there, without a question. I had a fight scheduled with him and not Sakurai, Rumina Sato, I believe it was. And no, I think it was Sakurai. No, it was the other guy. It was one of the Japanese fighters that was up there. And then I lost that fight because they put BJ Penn against him. No. I almost had the BJ Penn fight with Javi Vasquez in the UFC, and I lost that one too. But I thought Javi Vasquez in his prime was the best 155-pounder in the world, without a question. I liked Ludwig. I liked Bang Ludwig.
Yeah.
His excitement level and his ability to look like Opie, like your next door neighbor kind of white boy that you'd pick on in school. He was a bad dude.
He did that crane.
He did the crane against Shad Smith and King of the Cage.
Yeah.
You know, and he really was a Boss Rutan protege. He fought like Boss Rutan. He just believed that in the end he'd get a chance to get back to his feet and kick you in the head and knock you out. And then probably 5th, believe it or not, there was a guy named Ernie Perea. He was like 9 or 10-0 in King of the Cage. Maybe him and Philip Miller tied for 5th. Philip Miller went 17 or 18-0 his career, fought a couple times in the UFC.
Yeah.
And won there both times and just decided to retire and become a police officer. So those guys, those were probably my favorite fighters of all time. The guys that I could watch nonstop over, that I would pay to watch again to this day.
Did you know one of the guys I fought in your show or Gladiator Challenge passed away? The one time I didn't wear my chain. I forgot my chain. I can't remember the kid's name.
Wasn't Bryson Humbrick, was it?
You might be.
I think it was Bryson Humbrick.
He passed away somehow, like years later.
Yeah.
And I somewhere, like on social media, somewhere I bumped into one of his family members, and it reminded me. And one thing I remember about that kid, I'm always bad with names and stuff. Yeah. He was upset with me. Not that I beat him. He was like, "You forgot to wear the chain."
Can you imagine that? I mean, like people considered it an honor just to step in the ring with him, even at that point. And that was so early in his career. It was before we even had him on pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And to think that it meant that much to somebody that he didn't wear his chain. That'll tell you what people thought. That's what people thought of him.
Yeah, I'd be pissed. That ruined me my whole card, my whole legacy.
That was the heyday of MMA back in those days because we was on the forums.
Yes.
Wait, how'd you forget to wear your chain?
I don't know. Like sometimes, I stuff happened. I was packing or whatever. I didn't bring my chain. That's the only fight I didn't have my chain.
And last question I have for you before we let you go. I see a lot of stuff on the business side. So I know it's a very complex thing to put together a fight. You got to get this fighter, pay him, deal with his team. Seems like you've been very disciplined on not drawing the line between being an agent and a promoter and managing. And I feel like that's been part of your success.
A lot of the guys promote so that they can become an agent later. I'm a promoter. I'm not an agent. I don't like to jump into something that I don't feel like I have the background in.
Yeah.
I mean, in the fitness business, I opened up gyms for LA Fitness. I sold gyms for LA Fitness. I took that same format that Chin and Lewis Welch Chin Yi and Lewis Welch from LA Fitness had, and I took what they taught me in their programs to run gyms and to develop people and to develop salespeople under you, because I've always had a group of salespeople in whatever market I had that helped sell the show. And if I could sell enough tickets to the show and bring in enough money, I could keep these guys fighting on a regular basis. People say, did you do it for the sport? Nope. No, I did it for myself to make a better promotion. But that, by being a better promotion, by being able to do consistent shows, was going to help people. I don't come off and say I'm the saint. I did it for the sport. There was no doing it for the sport. But I knew that if I continued to do that, I could continue to supply a lot of people jobs over the years. And that's what we've done.
As honest as you could be. And is there a current deal with the UFC? Because we see the King of the Cage cards on the UFC Fight Pass, but we don't see you guys as an official feeder promotion, right?
No, we don't. I never wanted to become a feeder to the UFC. It's probably an honor for some of the shows.
Yeah.
They like to categorize some shows as regional shows. And that kind of gets under me a little bit, considering I've done shows in 11 different countries and 26 of the 50 states. I've done shows all over the world. Now, don't get me wrong. I'll do an amateur show. I'll do a show with 3 great fights on it and a bunch of undercard fights underneath it. Every card doesn't have to be a main event. But I also saw the history where the people that made the most money, like Mike Tyson. And on Mike Tyson's card, it was another great fighter, Ricardo Lopez, who was a 105-pound champion. And then it was Christy Martin, who was the female. And then it was Butterbean, who was the freak show. In the end, it's about entertainment. You still have to have a couple world-class fights if you want to consider yourself a world-class organization. But the undercard is a development part of the card. It doesn't have to be every fight has to be a title fight. Every fight has to be this. And that's kind of the route that I took. And I felt like it separated the top fights on my card from the other fights much further than UFC separates their top fights from the other fights. They've gotten more to it. They've really gone more that direction because now they have a lot more shows. But there was a point when it seemed like every 6 fights on a UFC card were all main event fights. And sometimes when you get to that elite level and you main event guys fight in main events, they're fighting to not lose. When younger, hungry guys are coming up and they're fighting to win, sometimes you lose some of the best fights of the night by not having the most elite guy at that moment on the card.
No, and that makes 100% sense too in terms of how you build fighters as well, because it gives them more confidence, gives them the ability to. On the business side, I totally understand what you do, and I think I also have a small history with King of the Cage because Rampage met those guys the other day that came in here. When I was 16, I used to go there and try to make.
Yeah.
When I was like 16, 17, I used to go to Danny Hernandez gym in Monrovia.
Yeah.
It was called Ring of Fire, the Vault. And I would try to go make shorts. I was like 16, 17. I wanted to make clothes. So they let me help them put on events. Not really put on the events, but maybe some money and stuff back then. And he had Bobby Green on one of his cards. And they were trying to be like you. And Danny was fighting in King of the Cage.
Yep.
And it was incredible to watch and learn about this whole process at such a young age. That was 15 years ago.
Hernandez was super tough. I mean, he was...
El Leon.
He was physically a great wrestling, decent striker, great at submissions. Just if he got overpowered in the match, he started to freak out a little bit.
Yeah.
He was a guy that had top level talent. He really was. Yeah. And he was a good guy to work with.
Yeah.
He was another real solid person.
Always talked great about you and your organization as well. So what is the relationship then before I let you go with UFC Fight Pass? How does that happen?
Okay, well, here's what happened. A lot of people like, hey, we're on UFC Fight Pass. UFC Fight Pass was the 3rd tier for us. Our first tier was MAV TV. So we aired all our shows on MAV TV first because that was the way our deal worked. The second deal was with pay-per-view. After we had MAV TV and they ran it within the first couple of weeks, or we did a few live, but we did a couple of weeks later, then we would run on pay-per-view.
Oh, got it.
After we were done with pay-per-view, 6 months after the show, we would give that now to the UFC for Fight Pass, where a lot of people, that's their first tier. The Fight Pass was King of the Cage's
interesting.
third tier for
So
television.
does UFC do a deal with you strictly just for licensing the content?
They did because they wanted to slow down our process with all these guys on here that we have on television. They wanted to make sure they had footage of these guys in the early days.
You had Sean Strickland too?
I had Sean Strickland for maybe 12 fights.
12 fights. You had Sean Strickland.
13 fights for Sean.
Okay, we can't just let you go without talking about this.
I took Sean Strickland to South Africa to fight the top guy from South Africa. He fought one of the top deep guys from Japan in the Philippines. He was the main event in that Philippine fight. So he fought, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was I think he was the champion from deep.
Was he always like that, very talkative and
Sean Strickland was a handful. He was, he was what he was. We've had our good moments and our bad moments. And to be honest with you, I'd rather go forward on a good tone with Sean Strickland. He's doing well for himself, and I'm happy that he's doing well for himself. I had a lot of issues with Sean Strickland. We sat in a restaurant. I had a knife under the table one time, and I didn't know how it was going to end up.
For real?
Oh, absolutely.
Stop.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, if he'd have come across the table, I'd have stuck him that time.
Wow.
But we ended up working and getting past it. Yeah, like you never know in this business what's going on. I had Big Daryl sitting there. He had John Munoz sitting on his side. We were at the floor, and he's trying to figure out how to get out of his contract, and he's trying to blackmail me into getting me out of the contract, and that doesn't work with me. I'm not a guy that gets intimidated. I'd rather go down on my sword than bitch out on something.
Sean then goes off to UFC, becomes a phenomenal world champion, top of the line, and obviously also becomes a huge star for the UFC.
Yes.
Did you ever reach out to him and say, hey, I'd love to make amends or something, come back, do some commentating?
No, but he's made some good comments about King of the Cage.
That's awesome.
So I know that he's gotten past that
cool.
moment as well too. And I wish good things for him. I think that he has all the tools to be the elite guy.
He's a rare talent.
Yeah, he has all the tools to be the next Conor McGregor for the UFC. I really believe it.
He's a rare talent, especially being American made. He trains under Eric Nixick at Extreme Couture.
Yep.
We sponsored the gym, brand new mats, JAXXON podcast.
That's already it's in.
It's all in. It looks incredible. And Eric Nixick is the first one to call me and say, yo, Sean Strickland trying to do this, or Aljo, or Kai, or any Dan, Dynamite Dan. Like, remember Eric Nixick and that whole camp over there, they really care about their fighters and their team. I mean, when Dynamite Dan took that last minute fight, Sean Strickland, Eric Nixick called up Sean Strickland and said, yo, Dan's fighting. We have to be at the arena in 30 minutes. We have no corner. It's going to be me, you, and Kai. We're going to sit in the corner for Dan. Dan's going to fight Diego Lopez, both JAXXON athletes. And Sean Strickland said, tell me what time to be there. So when you have your boys, certain guys' character, they're just so passionate. Someone did something to Rampage, I'd kill him. But me and Rampage would yell at each other all day.
Right. No. It's okay to fight with your brother. Yeah. But nobody else can fight with your brother.
Exactly.
I
never held a knife to Rampage.
Yeah. I had it under the table. I had this. You know how big Daryl was. Daryl was like 290 with no body fat. I don't know if he could fight or not, but he sure looked like he could do something. I mean, if not, he could at least lift the table and throw it at somebody. But yeah, I had it. I had to come under because there were some, and he tried to intimidate me. That just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I'd rather take the ass whipping.
Was he the toughest guy to negotiate with? One of the worst guys?
No. The whole negotiation went well. But the second, and I explain this to a lot of young kids when you're coming up. Listen, if you are ready, and I'm running out of opponents, and I think you can go in and win the UFC belt, I'll let you go. But if I know you're not ready, and I have 4 or 5 fights with you, and I can get you to that point, don't make me throw you away and make all the footage of the money that I spent on you worth nothing, okay? Make it worth something. Now, the footage of Strickland is worth something. If I let him go a year and a half earlier, maybe it's not worth anything. Draco Rodriguez is a perfect example. They even tried to say I lied to them, which was a complete lie, okay? Draco Rodriguez had 3 fights left in King of the Cage, and they couldn't believe I wouldn't release him to go. And I said, he just got destroyed in King of the Cage, and you're going to put him in the UFC? Yeah, but it's just the Contender Series. I said, he's not ready. I said, he'll be ready when he's probably 23, not when he's 20. And he went out and he fought a couple fights, and now, and then they want, then they act like, when guys do that, they act like, well, can you rebuild me? No, I don't rebuild the guy that went out and got bombed.
Because it costs you money, right?
Right.
See, that's the part. See,
where do I get repaid for the money it cost me to build you up in the beginning? Your footage has to become, a certain amount of guys' footage has to become worth something. My Quentin Jackson footage, priceless. My Sean Strickland footage, worth a lot.
See, this stuff that fighters, we don't think about that.
Yeah.
We don't know the side of the promoter, and he's like honest enough and stuff to keep it real and let us know. Like I never heard a promoter talk like that. I'm learning something right now.
Me too.
When you
say footage, do you actually mean like the way you sell footage to licensing and syndication and publishing, or you just mean using that as a term?
When I go to Monaco, France, and I sit at Sportel, and I've got the World Judo Federation here, and I've got NASCAR sitting here, and the NBA sitting over there, and the NFL sitting over here, and I'm sitting in my little booth amongst that group. I've got Quentin Jackson, Ronda Rousey, Uriah Faber, Diego Sanchez, Forrest Griffin, big giant pictures of them in the background, and that's what I'm selling there.
But what do you sell? I would love to just hear this before you leave, and I know we got to wrap up.
It's content. It's all about content.
It's content,
right? He owns the content.
Oh, so you sell the publishing to these syndications to then go put on their like
licensing
Tubi
rights.
or Hulu or whatever?
Back now, that's what it is. Back then, it was Sky TV in Europe.
Yeah.
It was every different territory, whether it was China or whether it was
Ryan, Italy, Sky in Brazil with Vitor. I remember. Yeah,
everybody has a different linear television platform back then. So I would sit there and take 40 or 50 meetings in 3 days in Monaco with all the different television providers. And usually, if somebody bought the UFC, everybody scrambled to me to get the second footage. So once the UFC had committed to one television platform, the second tier platform ran to me and said, "Hey, can you get me?" I said, "Yeah, I got all the same guys. See all the guys that they show as their champions? They're all up right behind me too." Yeah, and that's what I ran.
And look, and fighters, they would look at what he's doing and they wouldn't understand. Like, that's good for them too, because now they can go, the more work he's doing, they can go to those markets and
they become an international brand.
Yeah, and they can make money off that if they're smart.
Right.
They don't understand that.
So before I let you go, last thing, is there any huge deal that you could talk to us about that you did that you feel like people don't know about in the MMA community that puts King of the Cage at a different level?
Anything you want to plug.
I've had slot machine deals. I have a King of the Cage slot machine. Actually, I don't even know if you ever saw a picture. And I didn't use the actual fighters. I used like cartoon characters that kind of look like them. But I had a King of the Cage slot machine. I had a King of the Cage video game that they paid me $250,000 that never released. Majesco bought it. I think the UFC might have paid them to hold it. So it didn't come out a year before their video game, because I was about 18 months ahead of the UFC on a video game.
Wow.
My deal with BCI Eclipse in the DVD market, okay, I was way ahead of the UFC. I was selling 3 times as many videos as the UFC was in BCI Eclipse. I was in Sun Close Video, Walmart, Fry's Electronics, Best Buy.
I remember seeing
everywhere you went, it was King of the Cage. Now stuff's a little different. Now it's downloads, and now it's like Tubi and Pluto and platforms like that. Yeah. So the thing has changed. But in those days, I was crushing it on some of those, and that's how you get to continue doing shows, continue marketing, and paying $100,000 to go to Monaco to sell it and make the brand bigger. And
if you ever need my signature to sign off on, like, just hit me up. I got you.
Okay.
I would love to do something. No. Hey, we need to talk after this. I would love to do something. I think I have an idea. I think we're about to go crazy.
Well, whatever you guys want to do.
You got to stay 5 minutes right when we turn this off.
You guys are business,
but you got to stay in the meeting. I don't want the cameras to see this.
All right, hey, but anything you want to plug? You want to plug your show on October 8th? I mean 5th, October 5th.
October 5th in San Manuel Stadium in San Bernardino. It's a beautiful baseball stadium. The minor league Angel teams play there. We had about 7,000 people out the last time. I have a couple cigar lounges set up in the top, away from the people, but guys are smoking beautiful cigars. I have tequila tasting companies out there. There's a pretty good chance we're going to have F3 there as well. So people that want to try the best energy drink around, F3 is going.
I think Rampage is going to be on the ring. I think he did a huge deal to be on the ring.
I don't know. It's probably too soon for that, but if you got time.
No, it's not too soon. We'll get it on the ring.
Okay.
I also have the second installation of the King of the Cage Hall of Fame.
Wow.
And I'm trying to bring the 5 or 6 guys that we put in the first induction.
Who is in it real quick before you leave?
In right now, Uriah Faber, Quentin Jackson, Ernie Perea, Joe Stevenson, Dean Lister.
Wow.
I'm missing one person.
That is a King of the Cage.
Heavyweight. What's heavyweight? You got a heavyweight?
That's a crazy.
No, but this one coming up, I haven't told the guys yet.
Okay, don't say it.
But the Rhino is going to be on there, believe it or not, because of his performance over Ken Shamrock in King of the Cage in South Africa. Yeah. The Rhino has put out the effort, and he's really, he's been a warrior. He was the main event in King of the Cage, won.
He's a great guy. I love Rhino, bro.
Yep. So I've got Dorano coming in. I've got Joe Camacho, who passed away, will also be put into there. Charlie Valencia is going to be in the Hall of Fame as well. Charlie Valencia was the best 125, 130 pound fighter ever. The problem was he was in, you remember how good Bobby Gamboa was.
Yeah.
Okay. But Bobby Gamboa was a 140 pounder fighting in a 155 pound division. That was always a tough thing for Gamboa.
Yeah.
Charlie Valencia was a 125 pounder fighting in a 155 pound division. So it was really tough. When he fought Faber, his only loss in King of the Cage was to Uriah Faber. Faber had like 30 pounds on him by the time they fought. But there wasn't those super light divisions at that time. Yeah. But eventually we created that division and he was unstoppable. And then he did well for, the qualifier that the UFC had for a while.
Dana White Contender Series?
No.
Ultimate Fighter?
No, it was on Versus. It was...
I don't even remember that one.
Oh, it was the lighter division UFC before they brought the bigger...
Strikeforce?
No.
It was like... it was the 3 letter. It looked like the letters, they were like red, white, blue.
I didn't know nothing about that shit. Yeah.
What it was is they only had 170 pounders and up in the UFC. They had like a lighter division at that
to build up like the 125s.
Yeah. I'm sure if y'all remember, I'm like, but I didn't watch that shit. What's your website?
KingoftheCage.com.
Where can they buy the tickets? Yeah, say that too.
KingoftheCage.com. They can go to San Manuel Stadium and purchase tickets from San Manuel Stadium as well.
Where can they watch it online?
Online, they'll be able to watch it on Pluto. And we'll also probably stream this show live.
Yeah. Where would you stream it live? On the website or YouTube?
I think we're going to stream it on YouTube this
Nice.
one.
Great call.
Yeah. And he gave us some tickets. You're going to give some?
Yeah, so guys, if you go to the JAXXON Podcast Discord, we're going to drop this episode pretty quick here. I think we're going to drop this in the next 24 hours. So make sure you guys go into our JAXXON Podcast Discord. You just go to our JAXXON Podcast Instagram, click it, subscribe, and we're giving away 30 tickets courtesy of King of the Cage, courtesy of Rampage Jackson being a Hall of Fame inductee to the King of the Cage, and 2 of the best guys in the MMA pioneering the sport. So make sure you go there. All you got to simply do is go to the JAXXON Podcast Instagram or the YouTube, type in hashtag King of the Cage giveaway. We're going to select a few of you guys and mail you the tickets.
I would love to see you guys there. I'm going to be there. I'll be shaking hands and meet. You want me to sit down?
Kissing babies.
Kissing babies.
Kissing babies. I'm thinking, what is it now? 2024 election coming up? 2024. I think by 2032, Quentin Jackson for president of the United States.
All right, we're making a new T-shirt. It's going to say Quentin Jackson for president, and then we'll figure out a VP.
I'm telling you,
VP.
Trust me, y'all don't want that because I'd be worse than Bill Clinton. I'd be smashing everybody in the Oval Office. Y'all don't want that.
Hey, I like Bill Clinton, and I don't like all the Democratic presidents, but I like Bill Clinton.
He's the only one I voted for.
I thought he was a gangster,
He's the only one I voted for so far.
I'll be your VP. I'll run
we really going to fuck up the country.
No, honestly, you know what? I'll do that for you.
No, fuck up.
No, hey, shake on it.
Hey, you think you two can screw it up more than it's going to right now? I'll take my chances with you two.
Yeah.
You got my vote.
I'm making merch this week.
Yes.
Hey, if you guys fuck with me, make sure you guys follow the King of the Cage and, you know what I'm saying?
And vote Rampage Jackson for president.
Fuck that part.
JAXXON Podcast, we out.